Good day, my fellow viewer. Welcome back to Classical YouTube channel. Before I start anything, please try and subscribe for more updates about personnel management or operational research, quantitative techniques, economics, and more. We practically teach. We practically deal with calculation. So for today's class, I'll be explaining a major topics under quantitative techniques, and these topics is across the business management, the economics, or let me just say all management. Basically, the biz admin, the banking and finance, the accounting students, they all pass through these major topics under quantitative techniques. Or likewise, the economics in perspective, you do this under operational research. So I'll be explaining in details before the calculation. I'll explain some key points and some key analysis under the decision analysis itself. What do we understand by the word decision analysis? We always try to understand that we as a manager, we tend to make a decision. We tend to analyze a decision in order to what? In order to ascertain profitability. So it is a decision we tend to make that will determine profitability to the organization. And under that, we shall be emphasizing on decision analysis. But my major concentration is under uncertainty. We always try to understand that the certainty under decision analysis talks about just a single state of nature, while the uncertainty talks about different state of nature in relation to what? To the alternatives. All of these must be well analyzed. Let's take it one after the other. Under the uncertainty, what are the following we tend to have? We have the maximax, we have the minimax, we have the minimax regret criterion, we have the equally likelihood, which is also called the Laplace. We also have the reason criterion. Now let's take them one after the other. Most students tend to have difficulty in analyzing most of these calculations. I'll take my time to explain them in details. Now, if you have to check the first one, the first one is called the maximax criteria. Let us refer into that analysis. It means the maximax or the maximax of the maximax. That is, we tend to select the maximax, and from all the maximax, we will select the highest of the maximax, which talks about optimistics. That is, this is an optimistic criterion. The decision maker aims to maximize profit. The decision maker aims to maximize income in an organization. Under this criteria, we focus on what? On selecting all maximax, and after selecting all maximax, we tend to select the highest of all maximax, and which is also called what? The optimistic criteria. If you have to check the second one, we call it the maximum criterion, which I can also call the maximum of the minimum. The maximum of the minimum. That is, we tend to select the minimum from all of the alternative, and from there, from all of the minimum, we will select the maximum, which we call the permissistics. If you have to check the analysis, we have it as the decision maker is assumed to be permissistics. The objectivity is to maximize the minimum possible outcome. All of these must be well analyzed when we start calculation. The next one is the regrets. For every organization, they will always have the mindset of, after we have made up the decision, we are not going to run at loss. Hope you are not going to regret after making a crucial decision. There are some uncertainty calculation that will let us to understand how we can reduce regrets in business or in our decision. If you have to check, the decision maker should attempt to minimize regrets. Decision maker should attempt to minimize regrets. So as far as I'm concerned, we tend to analyze a regret table before we can make a decision. So from there, before actualizing or selecting a particular alternative, what must come first? Analyzing a regret table. So a regret table first, before selecting or before analyzing a maximum, and from the maximum we'll determine the minimum. All of these will be well analyzed when we start calculation. The next one is the Laplace criterion. One thing about the Laplace criterion is that we tend to ascertain probability, that is equal probability. That is having the aggregate or having the average of all alternatives. Having the average of all alternatives. It is based on the question. That's why they have to analyze that this assign equal probability to all the events of each alternative. That should be under the Laplace, which can also be called equally likelihood. The last one is is the reason criterion. It is the compromise. That is the relationship between the maximum and and the minimax criterion. It is a compromise between the optimistics and the pessimistics, in which they tend to give us a benchmark based on alpha. Alpha tends to be stated in a question, and the alpha is meant for the optimistics, while the pessimistics will now be 1 minus the alpha. This will be for the optimistics, while this will be for the pessimistics. And we tend to select the highest under the alternative, and select the minimum under the alternative, and in which both will be analyzed under the alpha and 1 minus 1. All of this is just an explanation. When we start calculation, we will understand. Let us take yours back to the analysis of the calculation. Checking back the calculation, we'll take them one after the other. From the calculation, we are given a state of nature. From the calculation, we are given a state of nature, and the state of nature is meant for the gasoline availability. And as far as I'm concerned, this question is under an investors planning to invest on motels, on restaurants and theater. On the state of nature of this following. We cannot change state of nature. We can only adjust to it. We can only blend to it. We cannot change it. You can only work on the state of nature. In an organization, we cannot change government policies. We can only adapt to it. And that is one thing about the question. This is an investment. We tend to select the best alternative under the state of nature. And take notes. We cannot change the state of nature. We can only select the best decision for the state of nature, using different questions or using different decision analysis to solve for them. Let's take them one after the other. The question and the solution will be well detailed. Let's take them. The first question told us we should calculate the maximax, then I explained something. I explained that we tend to select the maximax of all the alternative, and we'll select what? The maximax. Now let's take that one after the other. For motels, let's select the maxim, and we'll select the what? The final answer to be what? To be maximax. So under motel, the highest is what? Is 200,000. We have start calculation. Under the restaurant, the highest is 80. The highest is 80,000. And under the theater, which is the last trend, the highest is 60. So that's the first thing we need to do before we now select the what? The highest of the highest, the maximum of the maximum, in which we have this to be our highest. Sorry, we have this to be our highest. And we tend to make our decision. And the decision is that the investors should invest on what? On motels under the state of nature of surplus. That's the first thing to do. Let's proceed. Which is, this is A. Now let's talk about B. Now under B, we also tend to repeat the variable. We tend to solve for the minimum, the maximum, which means the minimum of the maximum. The minimum of the maximum. So we tend to select the minimum of all of them, and after the minimum of all of them, we will now select the maximum from the minimum. That's the analysis there. Now, let's check. What are the minimum value we have? We have, under motels, we have minus what? Minus. Under motels, we have minus 80. The second one, we have 80,000. And the last one, we have 60. The minimum, my minimum for this is what? My minimum for this is 20. And my minimum for this is what? Is 50. And I am done with the first procedure. The second procedure is to select the what? The maximum from the minimum. And the maximum is what? What will be my maximum here? My maximum will be what? 50,000. I am also done with this. Then you make a decision that the investor should actually invest on what? On theater under the state of nation of surplus. We're getting there gradually. The next one is to calculate for the minimized regrets. The first thing to do is to prepare the regret table. And in preparing the regret table, I have to use this variable to analyze this. So there is no stress. We tend to take the regret from the state of nature one after the other. I will explain that. I'm also having the stable, and I'm also having surplus. So I am taking it from the state of nature. Now, the first state of nature, the rule states that we should select the what? The highest, and we should use the what? The highest what? Should subtract the others. Now, if you have to check, the highest of this is 60. The highest of that is what? Is 60. So, which means 60,000. That's the analysis there. So, that is 60,000. Let me refine it as well. Okay, let me proceed. I believe you understand that analysis over there. So, we tend to have 60 minus what? Minus 80. So, 60 minus 80, which will give me 140. I tend to use it to also subtract the what? The order, including itself. Including itself. The highest is still 60 on that shortage. So 60 minus 20 will give me what? 40. 60 minus 60 will give me 0. You also come to the what? To the next state of nature. The highest here is 150. So 150 minus 150 will give me 0. 150 minus 80. And 150 minus 80 will give me 70. We are getting there. And the last one is 150 minus 60, which will give me 90. 90, 150 minus 60. I am also done with that. And recall, this is the motor under the state of nature. This is the restaurant, and this is the last one. Let's proceed. Let us deal with the last state of nature, which we call what? Surplus. You will check again. What's the highest? The highest is 200. That is 200 minus 200. Give me 0. 200 minus 60 will give me 140. We are getting there. And the next one is 200 minus what? 50 will give me 150. So this is my regret table. This should be my regret table. The next thing to do is to what? Is to analyze my maximum. And to select my maximum, let's select our maximum. Now, what is the maximum of this? The maximum of this is what? 140. I am done with the regrets. The next thing to do is to what? Is to forecast the maximum. Then after forecasting the maximum, then we will finish up the work with the remaining one, which we call the minimum. The minimum of the maximum regret criterion. That's the analysis. So at this position now, I tend to select the what? The maximum from each state of nature. From each alternative. The first alternative is motors. The second one is restaurants, and the last one is what? Theater. How did I determine my regrets? I determine my regrets from my state of nature, from each state of nature. So it is a process. Determine your regrets from each state of nature and determine your maximum from each alternative. Now, my maximum here is what? 140. My maximum here is still what? 140. And my maximum here is what? Is 150. So the last analysis there is to select the what? The minimum. You can select between. So I tend to select what? 140. And the 140 I'm selecting is under what? Restaurant. So using the minimized regret criterion, my decision is to what? Is to invest on what? Restaurants. That is the analysis under what? Under that. Yeah?